Some sour grapes coming from Mike Aresco of the AAC with some quotes that have surfaced in the Wichita Eagle and an admission that things are basically over for the American and trying to keep a hold of the three teams headed to the Big 12. Welcome into the YouTube channel. I am John Kurtz. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please do consider it. I talk college football every day here. Right now I'm talking conference realignment every day here, trying to give the Big 12 a voice when there's not much of one nationally. Mike Aresco. Not the fondest of this guy after he seemed very willing to play the role of pawn in ESPN's scheme to take down the Big 12, right? We can start with that understanding here. But there were some very interesting quotes that surfaced from him in a story by Taylor Eldridge of the Wichita Eagle, who does a great job. He covers Wichita State, obviously a member of the AAC in basketball. They don't have a football program, but the article centered around, hey, what does this mean for Wichita State basketball? But he got an interview with Aresco, the AAC commissioner. And that's a pretty great get right now. And here's the first quote that is going to, I think in Big 12 country, perk a lot of people's ears up. Here it is. Quote, "When there's this much smoke, there's probably a fire," Aresco said. "We have not received an official notice yet." This, of course, talking about from the three teams, Houston, UCF, Cincinnati. "We have not received an official notice yet, but if we do, we'll deal with it if that does happen. We don't know what the timetable would be or how many seasons those teams would play in our league." So, a public admission of sorts by Aresco that this is in the works. You know, I mean, a lot of times you're not going to get something that direct from a commissioner. I would have anticipated maybe a no comment and just wait out the week and see what happens. But that sounds like a guy that obviously is pretty resigned to what's happening, which is much like what happened with the Big 12 as soon as everybody realized the gravity of the story of Texas and Oklahoma leaving. But if that quote will really grab your attention, this is the one that will elicit a reaction from Big 12 fans, because later on in the story we get this quote from Aresco that says, quote, "I would like to add that when comparing the remainder of the Big 12 after Texas and Oklahoma leave, I think our league is stronger, and I think our league has more potential. It would be a shame if those teams do go, but if they do, we'll be prepared to deal with that and move on." Okay, so some real spin here from Mike Aresco saying that his league is stronger than the 8 teams, basically the irate 8, the 8 teams left in the Big 12, which I think is pretty patently ridiculous. And obviously the 3 schools that are leaving would agree because they're on track to join the Big 12. BYU would seemingly agree with this as well because they were not apparently looking to join the American. Look, there's only 2 options here. Either this is total spin from Aresco and he has an inferior league, which is the reality, or you're terrible at your job and you got totally clown-suited by Bob Bowlesby, who's been the one wearing the clown suit to the national media for a long time. He's the guy that everyone's been calling a dunce forever and doesn't have control of his league after Texas and Oklahoma leave, etc., etc. So it's one of the 2, Aresco. You're going to have to choose. Either you're bad at your job or you have the inferior product. I don't really think Mike Aresco is bad at his job. I think he has the inferior product. I think to me this is just the proof that we all really tangibly needed there when there were some tense moments for the Big 12 and, you know, the story from Mandel about the TV numbers and the AAC and AAC fans getting big puffed out chests and really trying to close in here. And I don't do any of this to really clown on those fan bases. I get it. A lot of them, Memphis, for instance, in kind of the same boat that K-State, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, etc. were when Texas and Oklahoma left. I understand. I don't mean to make light of that. But it was very frustrating that there was this sentiment from a lot of people, including I heard it on Paul Feinbaum's show, which I'll just admit is what really got me fired up about, hey, they're talking about, hey, Mike Aresco's moving in silence right now because something's in the works. And then you have this ESPN plot to take everybody down. It just, all of that really had me turned off on Aresco and very frustrated and angry. So when I see something like this, I'm going to point out the ridiculousness of a quote like that. So there's also this quote from Aresco. He says, quote, "Should they leave, our schools would be helping to prop up the other 8 of the Big 12. Think about that. They would be restoring their P5 position by using our schools. So therefore, I think that shows we've been a Power 6 conference all along, and we just haven't gotten credit for that." Now, that's a quote I won't spend too much time getting mad about or upset about because that's Aresco's job, right? He has to be saying they're a Power 6 league, and that's the stance he should be taking, and that's what his members would want him to do, and I understand that. Look, nobody out there in their right mind, how many people have you heard say Power 6 outside of Mike Aresco in the last year or two? So I'm not going to waste time beating him up for that. I mean, saying that they're propping up the other 8 schools, that's ridiculous. It's too much. There's levels to this. As Meek Mill said, there's levels to this bleep. Clearly, the remaining schools in his conference do not match up to the remaining 8 left over in the Big 12. anybody realizes that. Clearly, the schools that are coming to the Big 12 don't match up to Texas and Oklahoma, at least from a brand standpoint. Yes, I know there with Texas, nobody would make that argument, okay? But that's Aresco doing what he needs to do as commissioner of the AAC. Now, I'll close with this. One final note from the story, and this could just be a throwaway line, but if it is said with some sourcing behind it, it becomes very interesting to the Big 12 moving forward. It says, this is from the article, not from Aresco, but from the article, if the schools give the AAC an official notice by the end of this week, then their projected exit date would be January 2024. Then it talks about UConn leaving the AAC early, and adds the details could be finalized by the end of this week. So that tells me like there could be some settlement already reached by the end of this week for the AAC schools, which the last report we saw yesterday from Yahoo Sports was that 2023 was the expected start date, the football season of 2023, for the three schools coming from the AAC and BYU, which would mean, if all of that is true, along with that statement that we just saw, that they would have something worked out by the end of the week to allow them to join the conference a couple of months early and be ready for the 2023 football season. So I may be wrong. Maybe the AAC is more willing to work here, and maybe there is more money at those three schools to be able to negotiate their way out of the AAC earlier. That would be wonderful news for the Big 12. It would be great, and I would love to be wrong, and I would love to see it. That's what I have for you today. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please do. I talk college football every day, conference realignment every day right now, giving the Big 12 a voice here on this channel. You can follow me on Twitter at JLKurtz. You can find more links to my content in the description here, and you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram at John Kurtz Show. I would really appreciate it if you did. Take care, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.